Welcome to Planet Marzipan podcast,
your fish and Marillion podcast,
where we talk about all things in the planet of Marillion and fish. I'm Mezza, and here's my mate,
Craig Houston.
Hello, and welcome to Planet Marzipan podcast. With me, Mezza, and my good friend,
Craig
Houston. We have another special guest. We're spoiling you with these special guests recently. I'd like to welcome to the podcast James Levey.
Good evening.
And James is here in his capacity as a fan, but also, as we'll talk about later, has another role integral to the band's releases, I think you'll find.
Oh, building my part there.
That triangle playing's just coming on. It's cracking.
Yeah, it is, yeah. The hand claps are getting better.
Well, James, we ask all our guests on the pod how you first heard about the band. What's your story?
Officially, and I'll explain why officially in a minute. It was 91. That's where I sort of came on board. There was I don't know if you remember I think the early 90s, there was a TV program called the James Well Radio Show.
Yeah, yes.
It was on late night TV, and just happened to be watching one night when they played the video for Cover My Eyes.
Now can I stop you there with that one? That was a special version of the Cover My Eyes video. It's a different one. Yes, it's a bit more close up of things that you really generally wouldn't talk about getting close up. And he mentioned it at the time because I remember watching it because I was actually sitting watching it with my mum. Because she was a big James Whale fan. Again, going back a bit, he used to host Night Owls in the Northeast, TV radio show, which was massive. And then Alan Robson took over and got even bigger. But
I know Alan Robson, yes.
Yeah, so James Whale used to do Night Owls beforehand, and he had an exclusive play of the Cover My Eyes video, which was a lot more close-ups of the young girl in it. Anyway, I'll let you back your story.
You know, you just can't.
I can't help.
Guest on. It's not. Planet Marzipan meets Faye Houston, is it?
Oh, come on, you know fine. Well, you call it Craigipedia, don't you? So.
Your nerddom went off. I could see there, you know.
I'm
Yeah.
You know I am.
Sorry, James.
Sorry, James.
That's all right.
I apologise.
You were saying, James Whale Radio.
Yes, I was watching this video very closely, apparently.
No surprises there.
Yeah. And yeah, he played Cover My Eyes and really liked the song. Didn't really know anything about the band. And then a few weeks later, I was in W.H. Smith's in Aylesbury and saw the cassette for Holidays in Eden for sale with the sticker that said, Cover My Eyes. I went, oh, brilliant. Bought that. As I walked out the shop, bumped into my best friend at the time, Ben. He said, what you been buying? I sort of brought out the tapes I've been buying. And one was Holidays in Eden. He went, Marillion, they're shit, which was sort of, if I'm allowed to swear. If not,
yes, you have to swear on here. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Break it early. Which was sort of a lot of my friends at the time when I mentioned the band's name was sort of the response because I wasn't a proggy at all. I wasn't into prog at the time. And then about a few months later, I swapped schools. And as you do, introduce yourself to new people. One guy called Andy, so we got chatting and I mentioned, I like this new band called Marillion, not really heard of them much. And he went, I'm a massive fan. You do know they're local? I was like, no. And sort of said, well, they're playing the Civic in December. We've got a spare ticket. Do you want to go? And I was like, yeah. And that was my introduction to the band, which, I think it was my third ever gig. Thought it was absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you ever went to the Civic Centre, but it was a sort of...
We went to the Marbles warm-up.
Yeah. So it was like 900 capacity. It could get quite crowded and sweaty and stuff in there. So it was quite a packed gig that night. I thought it was amazing, but reading the Corona diaries later on, found out H hated it because he had a streaming cold. And yeah, that was my introduction to Marillion. But I say unofficially because when I was a lot younger, because I was 17 at the time, so I think I'm slightly younger than Greg. we moved up from London to a village called Aston Clinton, which might say great.
Aston Clinton Village Hall.
Radar, yes.
Yeah.
And lived literally about 3-4 minutes walk around the corner from where the band was, where moved in '79. And I used to go to the scout hut, scouts and cubs at the place where they rehearsed.
Wow.
And have vague memories of people lugging in gear after we left and stuff like that. So potentially our paths had crossed already.
It's fate, James.
Yeah.
Fate, isn't it?
If I'd a bit older, I'd have hung around and listened. But yeah, being only, I think, like 7 or something, 6 or 7. But yeah.
So your first gig was on the Holidays tour, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Well, the begs the question then. What do we call you? Do we call you the band's archivist? Do we? What title did we give you on the podcast?
I don't know. I guess so. I guess other people have called me that within worse things as well. But, yeah, I guess that I'm sort of lucky being in a position where I've been able access to the archives and gone through and found lots of bits of information and catalogued it, or in the process of cataloguing it all. There's quite a bit. And sort of helping out with the making ofs and the remasters.
So which was the first making of that you were involved in?
Marbles.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So I've done, I think, 5 making ofs now, from Marbles up to Fear.
Yeah.
And been involved with the remasters since Afraid of Sunlight.
Brilliant. So I think a lot of our listeners know this already, but do you want to just talk a little bit about the way the band records, the way the band sort of music evolves?
Yeah. So, it's been talked about for quite a while. And I think this is a sort of evolved over the years, but essentially they jam. Essentially they get in a room together, jam, see what comes out. Some days are good, some days are bad, some days they have the ideas that everybody gets excited about, and other days sort of other stuff comes out, because there's so much music that gets created over an album. And some of the later albums, the amount of stuff to listen to is quite incredible. And then so they work through maybe could be months, could be years, depending on what's been going on with, especially lately in the last sort of decade or so, with a lot of the conventions, solo stuff, it sort of gets in the way of the writing, because they love to run away and play gigs rather than be stuck in the writing club. And then eventually,
guitarist guilty.
Yeah, there's a guitarist very guilty of that. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen dates appearing all over the place. And with Mike Hunter, he goes through all the jams and then sort of edits them, suggests potentially bits that he likes, they like, and then creates almost like listening lists for the band to go through on a really monthly basis, depending on how much they've created. And then where they used to in the past, used to sort of create comps. So they used to have compilations, and those comps became super comps or ultra comps as they work through sort of weeding out the bits that think, I'm not really sure about that one, or I'm really excited about that, and things like that. Where Mike changes a bit more, where he'll add loops or he'll add some edits to it and suggest other bits that might go with part A, might go with part B, depending on mood or lyrics or whatever. And then when they get to sort of the list of what they want to work on, they then start arranging. So they'll then go through probably a song or an idea, work it through, see where it goes next, see if they can change it, because they don't like to write a song that's straight, the sort of typical verse, chorus, bridge, key change, chorus, outro, out. Yeah. They want to change lots of things. So it sort of goes through that iterative process where they go through. And I think since sort of Happiness is the Road, because it gets recorded to multi-track, everything's down on multi-track, so they don't have to re-record it if they need to. If they think something's great and the feel's great and everything like that, they could take a part of part of maybe the drums or the bass or the guitar, or pretty much most of it, and then build on top of that to create the song. And then they'll they'll work through it. And recently they then go off to real world and have a week or two together. So they'll, in a pretty much as they used to do in the sort of 90s and 80s, be a band that have a continued piece to get the songs together, and they'll finish, and then they'll start doing overdubs and things like that, and then it will get mixed.
And do you hear all of these different stages? Do you hear the stuff before Mike's comped it, or do you get the things that do you get to hear the comps, or
bits and pieces? The older ones. So when you're talking, like for example, with Dave Meegan would record everything, every little sneeze, cough, dinner order, you name it.
Pizza delivery.
Pizza delivery. What H has had for breakfast, everything like that.
Okay.
And
is there Trogs tapes in there somewhere?
Oh, there's a few. There's a few choice ones. But, and so I get to hear pretty much from start to finish. With Mike, it's a bit more, because it's on the hard drives. It's sort of more of the comps or the edited stuff. Sometimes it's the raw one.
Yeah.
Depends what he's got what he's got his hands on, whether he's got the time and stuff like that, because, he's a busy guy. And then I get to hear, maybe some of the arrangements, some of the writing stuff, then maybe some of the mixing, because sometimes the mixes change, where they'll suddenly decide, oh, this bit needs a string quartet, or this bit needs an overdub, or needs an extra backing vocal or something like that. So you get early mixes and things like that. All them sort of, I pick out what I think is good and interesting and different, then that sort of goes on to the making of.
It sounds fascinating, but it also sounds like a huge amount of work.
Yeah. I remember when I first started it, I mean, I remember listening to, I think it was part of Ocean Cloud, and they spent like 3 days working on about a minute and a half's worth of music. And my other half was going, why are you listening to the same piece over and over and over again? I can tell you what's going to happen to it now. And I'm going, it's not the same. It's all different versions of the same.
It must be torture for your other half. It must be.
Now, that was when, she could hear it. Now we moved, and I'm in a converted loft where I can shut myself away and listen.
Is the lock on the outside as well?
Yeah.
Is she a fan of the band?
No.
Okay.
No.
Moving on.
She's tried. To give her a credit, she's tried. She's been to see 3 shows.
Yeah.
And we went to the first one was our make or break holiday. When you have a relationship, you have a make or break holiday. See if you can spend 24 hours with each other. Yeah, we went to Canada because we're friends and family out there. And I managed to sort of conveniently sort out the times when they were playing in Toronto. So I got tickets to go and see Toronto.
Oh, you never guess who's on in town. Yeah,
exactly.
Have you timed this?
Yeah. So we went to the gig in Toronto, which was on the Sounds That Can't Be Made tour, which was ridiculously hot. It was like late 30s. Even Brothers took his jacket off. That's how hot the gig was. I know. And people were
changed for Brothers.
Yeah. People were passing out on the front row and everything. But luckily, they did a set which was like all like really short songs or shorter songs.
Yeah.
The next time we went up to Wolverhampton on the Sounds tour, the proper UK tour, and they opened with Gaza. Yeah. And halfway through the song, she looked at me and just went, "Is this still the same song?" So I knew we were a bit doomed from there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. No. We know that. So you did say the first one that you worked on was the Happiness.
It was Marbles.
Marbles. Yeah. Marbles.
So how did they ask you, or did you volunteer?
I volunteered. I'd sort of back in, when was it? 2012, I think. It was towards the end of 2012. It was on Lucy's Friday Questions, and somebody asked the question, "Is there going to be a making of Marbles?" And Lucy went, "No, because no one here will do it." Because I think on the early making ones, I think it was Mark and Pete did the first couple. Don't know for sure. And then I think Colin and
Eric. There's nothing. I had a quick look today. There's nothing at all on the Brave one. There's some notes about the tracks, but no compilation now.
I think it's, from what I've seen, I think it was the band that did. Pretty sure it was Mark. Yeah. And so by that point, Colin and Eric had gone on to other things.
Yeah.
And I found out there's, nobody else really wanted to take it on. And just, I don't know, pure instinct. I just replied and said, I'll do it. Because I'd sort of met Lucy by then. I mean, I think I first properly met Lucy at the convention in 2009, which I think first time I met you two as well.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
The quiz. And so she knew who I was, and I'd been down to Racket for something else. And she messaged me and went, "Are you sure?" And I just went, "Yeah, okay." Thinking, what am I letting myself in for? And
That's
then
what she was asking you, James, really.
Yeah. And then a couple of weeks later, she said, "Well, come down to Racket. We'll have a chat." So, and for those who don't know, I live in Aylesbury, so I'm sort of Marillion Central, so I'm not far from Racket. So I went down there and we talked about it, and she went, "Oh, okay, I've got some stuff for you then." And Rich handed me a mini disc player and 2 huge crates, post office crates full of mini discs, CDs, tapes, anything I think it was, and just went, "Oof, they get on with it."
You said that's just for Bridge.
Yeah. That's Ocean Cloud. We'll bring the rest of it. And yeah, something like, I think it was like something like 270 mini discs.
Wow.
And 50 odd CDs and bits and pieces. And it took me about a year for the first one, because it's sort of making it up as I go along, really.
But the first one, it's a 3-disc set, first one as well, isn't it? It's great. There's some they're not, I'll be honest, they're not albums I pull out very often, but when I do, I mean, I put Mr. Taurus on about half an hour ago, just before we're due to chat. I don't know how you do it, because there's tracks. I mean, the backing track he's playing, I think on Mr. Taurus there's about 3 or 4 versions of Circular Ride that starts disc 2. But you don't know it's that until H decides to sing the melody line across the top. It's, I mean, we've talked, this is to a much lesser degree, but we've talked about the demos on the Clutching reissue, where Fish is singing the lyrics to what became Fish solo tracks over things that we're now used to hearing on Season's End. And that's enough to mash my brain. So how you do this, I have no idea.
I guess that I think it started off with, because Marbles is my favorite Marillion album.
Yeah.
And so it was, I think if it had been some of the other, maybe I wouldn't have said, yeah, I'll do it. But I mean, first and foremost, I approach it as a fan. I sort of think of like, okay, if I was going to buy it, and I have bought the previous making ofs, what would I want to hear? And I think one thing I sort of thought about early on is like, okay, take the making ofs that was done so far. What did I like? What I didn't like? The ones I didn't like was sort of a bit like the Afraid of Sunlight ones and the Brave ones, which is just snippets.
Yeah.
So, you hear 30 seconds or a minute and a half of the jam, and then they stop, and you go, well, I want to hear the rest. Where did they go from that? So my sort of thought was, well, actually, I'm going to put proper, if it's a 7-minute, like the second half of Neverland, that on that glass half full, that is the jam that came out pretty much straight away within the H going when D started singing that just off the cuff.
Wow.
And that's like six odd minutes. And I thought, well, I want to put that whole thing on because you're right. A lot of people with the making ofs, they don't reach them from very often. But my sort of thought was like, well, let's make it interesting enough. So when people do, or when they buy them, they think, oh, that's different. Or, oh, I didn't expect that.
Yeah. There's, and your liner notes are great, really detailed liner notes. We'll talk in a little while about the quiz at Port Zealand, but might be wise for people to read the liner notes before the next Port Zealand. Just a tip.
Maybe.
Just a tip. What's your favourite work? Well, I presume this is your favourite then, the Marbles one, is it?
Well, no, actually, my favourite's probably the Sounds That Can't Be Made one.
Okay.
Because I think it's got a lot of stuff on there that's really interesting. I mean, the glass half full one, that is a fraction of what's out there.
Really?
And maybe there'll be other stuff released down the line, who knows? But
Sorry, James, what are you saying there?
Who knows? I don't know.
Okay. Exclusive. You heard it here first, folks.
20
16
years later,
album,
remember that
16
time?
disc,
You
16 disc
get Lucy
Marbles
going,
deluxe
shut
set
him
coming
up,
soon.
shut him up. No, I mean, there's always potential for stuff and that's, I'll get onto that in a minute, but with the happiness, sorry, the sounds that can't be made one I knew that there was sort of things on my hit list because I knew there was an Anorak version of Power. I knew there was the Marbles version of Power. And I knew, and like starting to go back and listening to or cataloging all the bits in the Racket archive. Because just an aside note, where that came from, we were going through bits for the Afraid of Sunlight remaster.
Yeah.
And some of the tapes were sounding a little bit dodgy. And I said to Lucy, well, as I'm doing this, and because after the Marbles one, I'm going off on major tangents, but after the Marble one, I thought that was it. That was, done and dusted. And so every time I saw Lucy, I sort of nudged her and went, what about the next one? She went, yeah, okay, yeah. And then finally, I think in Leicester in 2017, she went, yeah, let's go for the next one. So by that point, they trusted me to do that, and they let me up into the Racket attic, where you walk in and just there's stuff everywhere. And so it's a case of I said to her, well, why don't I start as I'm going through all this stuff, digitizing it as we go, so we know if ever there was need to use it or some occasion to use it in the future, it's catalogued, archived, edited, and before the stuff starts degrading, because there's tapes up there that are 30 years old plus.
Yeah.
So when I got to Radiation and started sort of listening through the Radiation tapes, there was the early version of Pour My Love, which they did for Radiation called Love Like Rain. I never knew it was there because I'd never heard a reference to it. Nobody sort of mentioned it in interviews or anything like that. So it's little nuggets like that I get really excited about. And I think, well, as another fan, somebody else is going to get really excited about that. And so it's almost like little exclusives on the making ofs and things like that. So I think overall with sounds that can't be made and, like the Montreal version on there, which is an earlier version, which suddenly you expect the song to go one way. And there's a whole section in there that got dropped. There's got a cracking slide solo in there by Rothers. And so it was all little bits like that. So that's why I think at the moment it's my current favorite.
It's really interesting because you're frequently correcting H on the Corona Diaries. I think you did it again on the one that's gone out this week, where you sent the list of tracks that were considered for With Friends. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, because I know where it is.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, okay, I know where that is, and it's not a case of go digging for it much. I've seen it.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I sent it to Ant and just went, this might help.
Yeah, but there's one, isn't there the guitar riff from Care supposedly goes back years and years and years?
Oh, yeah. It goes back to January 2008, and it was written, had different lyrics on it. It's got, it was a song called Class, and I heard it, and I thought, this is brilliant. I think I heard it in 2018, and I thought, this is great. And I said to Mike, I said, why have you never used this? This is brilliant. And he went, we've been trying to use it on every single album since we wrote it. And in fact, this is a bit of an exclusive. If you hear the demo on The Making of Fear for the Levers, which is Mike's comp of the sort of maybe the different parts, because that's sometimes how Mike does it. He comps like a song together that would say, okay, I think these bits may work together, some may work, but actually they used a lot of different music on it. It fades out right at the end really abruptly because it then goes into that riff.
Is it?
And I thought, I can't use that because if there ever is in a making of An Hour Before It's Dark, that's going on there.
Sorry, if there is.
Okay. When
there is, yeah. Go on, James. Don't kill the golden goose. So you've talked about the stuff being in the loft. I think we've had conversations before where you've talked about some of the challenges about things being on old formats and having trouble accessing what's on the tapes.
Yeah. Obviously this is older media now, and sort of mini discs are fine. And Mike has sort of sourced some of the older machines, to play some of the older stuff. Cause, I think, well, about the Afraid of Sunlight remaster. I think there was H mentioned it again recently. Yeah. They had to rent the sort of DA88 tapes and things like that. And there's even Betamax audio stuff on there.
Wow.
Which, some of the really early, I think European stuff's on there. So it's a case of being able to find and sourcing. And I've got here some of the bits and pieces from the Racket Club that I use to digitize everything. So it's doing it now before even some of those MIDI disc players or DAT players break or go, stop working. And they say the tape only lasts for so long.
Yeah. And it's precious, isn't it? Really, it's precious stuff. Have you got any favorite tracks from the things that you've put on the making ofs that you would kind of recommend to people? Favorite early versions, maybe?
Circular Ride. I like Circular Ride.
Yeah,
I know
it's
sort of, I know some people don't, but I like it. And I like the acoustic version from the sort of more Celtic tinged version of Circular Ride. That was good. I was trying to think if it all sort of blends into one now and again.
Well, we're talking here, and you've got a almost encyclopedic knowledge of where tracks originate from.
I do. It's sort of, I think I said on the Corona Diaries, it sort of links into what I do for a living because I deal with knowledge management. And so I've got a bit of an analytical brain and memory for facts. So it sort of does log up there.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Very handy man to have on a quiz team.
Yeah,
Fortunately, as we'll talk shortly, it helps set it. So that's the problem,
But I think, there's still lots and lots of stuff out there that hasn't been used because obviously with the earlier making ofs and bits like that, I wasn't involved and go back. And I think because of, I've got the time to do it. My thing was that it's a labor of love. I want to do the best job I can for the band and, make it interesting for the fans. So me is like no stone unturned. I will try and root out as much as I can of interesting bits and pieces. Like I think you talked on the Season's End pod about the early version of the Space.
Yes.
That was I found a mini disc just lying on the floor that just said August 88, all it said on it. And I originally thought, it's probably the tracks that, we've already heard on the Clutching remaster and stuff like that, but I'll play it anyways. First thing I heard was that. And I was like,
brilliant.
Wow.
It's the amazing version. Isn't it? That's the strings groove thing. It's called on the Blu-ray, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the names, I must admit, sometimes the names are given by me because there's no information. There's no, but I have found after that, I've now found the, just lying around in another box somewhere, the tape box of it. And it was actually known as Pink Floyd.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go. That's an exclusive for you.
But that's, how excited must you be when you first hear that stuff?
Oh yeah. I mean, the first time I ever heard the Neverland Jam, the first jam that came, it's like, wow, yes, that sounds, and it does. And that's sort of, I think, what keeps me going is finding that information and trying to find something that I know I'll get excited about it and other people will get excited about it and it helps the band.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Do you think there's any mileage in, say, a best of the making ofs with alternate versions, the more complete things on the making ofs?
Possibly. I don't know. There's nothing sort of Lucy and I have ever talked about. Maybe, or there will be other bits that maybe come out on some of the maybe future remasters and stuff. Who knows?
Because the CDs tend to be fairly limited runs, don't they? Most of them are out of print now, and
they're on the downloads now.
They're on Bandcamp, aren't they?
They're on Bandcamp. Yeah.
Really, really interesting stuff on there. Though. Really.
But also perfect extras for the Blu-rays down the line once they go past the Strange Engine and stuff. Because then it'd be good to have the concept of the alternate version where you've got the demos of a complete album.
Yeah.
Which are really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think you've got the scope on the Blu-ray to put more stuff on there.
Yeah.
They're packing the Blu-rays now, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Compare it to, say, that even the Misplaced one, the first one, there's a lot more content on the Blu-rays now. It's fantastic value.
Yeah. And again, it's something that I sort of, because when I started doing the Somewhere Else, Lucy introduced me to Mike. And, I say to Mike, sort of, I found this and I found this. And I say to Lucy, I found this. I think it would be good for the remaster, or maybe we'll put forward as possible inclusion for the remasters. And you're right. I mean, I think some of the stuff that's in there now is really, really good, really packing it out. And compared to see other bands, what they charge for the remasters or special editions for other albums, I think the Marillion ones are really, really good in comparison.
Absolutely. Are you involved in the locating the live shows for selection? I know you don't have the final say on what goes on, but would you say pull out 3 or 4 shows to give to Mark Kelly to give to the band to choose?
Yeah, it's sort of Mike and I I'll say, oh, this one's a good one, or whatever I've got in there that's quality. Because the Season's End, there was a bit of a, and I think you discussed it on the Season's End remastered show that it pity there wasn't a complete Season's End show available. But the band want the best quality out there.
Yeah, because they didn't record, they didn't play live then, and the recording was more just like a cassette tape. If anything was actually recorded, really, it wasn't a.
It was
a lot. Even if you go back to Anarachnophobia, when they did the live Anorak in the UK, that was a proper big production of a lorry out the back recording it. It's not, it's completely different type of recording now.
Yeah, that was a multi-track. There was all 3 UK shows were recorded to multi-track. But for Season's End, the only ones I found in the attic were just, as you say, cassette tapes. Some are better than others, but you're not getting a full show, because I think even with the Front Row Club, the Roseville one, I think it was, you're missing the encores because it's on a 90-minute tape, and so it was a case of, well, potentially you could use some on the Blu-ray, and there was, we had the chat, and I said, well, why, as you playing Season's End in the conventions, you can record it properly. It'll be a cracking version, and also mirrors the Rocksteady show. It's at the same venues. You've got 1990, 2022, whatever it was, and things like that. And now for some of the other ones, it's a case of, let's see what else we've got in the loft that's either good, because not everything was recorded to multi-track. Is it good for a main show? Is it going on the CDs and the LPs, or is it something maybe go on the Blu-rays and extra?
Yeah. Has the stuff been selected for this Strange Engine now?
Yes. Yeah, it's all, I think last thing I knew, it was all waiting the band to sign off.
Right. Yeah. We had Tim on recently, and he's still working on the documentary at the moment. So I believe.
I think all the audio content has been finalized.
Yeah. I believe it's slated for sort of a summer release, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it.
He's so excited about it. I am as well. Yeah.
I'm not going to give the cat out of the bag because Lucy will shoot me, but.
She'll shoot you twice. Just to make sure.
Yeah. Just to say, if everything that's planned to go on goes on, it will be one of the most packed ones.
Wow.
And that's what I'm saying.
That's fine. That's fine, James. We don't want anybody getting sacked.
Or ritually executed, just for a spoiler.
I did ask you if you could come up with, say, a top 3 unheard treasures as a bit of a tease for everybody. We might never hear some of these things, but have you had a chance to have a think about that?
Yeah, I was thinking about it on the dog walk last couple of days, I had a chance to have a quick route around today. You can see, look, this is good for a podcast. You can see my notes.
Hey,
but that's the thing about when the band write and things like that. There's not much that actually gets to a point where it's a demo. Usually, where it's a demo, it's a case it'll either get used, put on the shelf, or it has been released at some point or the other, like Mirages from French Sunlight. Yeah, which actually they thought about it for TSE early on, but got quickly ditched. I've thought of a couple of things. There's a song that got worked on for holidays called Reactor One or Fire Burning. It was had a dual title, which actually got as far as the demo stage. And it was a song about if I understand the lyrics correctly. It's a song about Chernobyl, the Chernobyl disaster.
Oh wow, okay.
Because the chorus is there's a fire on reactor one, and that was on the tape that got sent to Chris Neal of leftover ideas that potentially could be used for holidays, which had Waiting to Happen on and had the different ideas that became Cover My Eyes. And that to me, it's a really good song. And it was sort of about three and a half minutes. So it was quite a little poppy number. And there was another song on that sort of got worked on a little bit. It was called Blame It on Someone Else, which was it's probably one of the most poppiest things I've ever done.
Oh.
And it was actually, from Holidays. Yeah. And it was actually sort of nicknamed Pop Song. But that sort of never got really worked on that far. It sort of got tried a few times and ran through it a couple of times. What else have I got? There was an early version of Neverland during the Anorak sessions, because one thing I've found out a lot by listening to, the music or listening to all the different sessions for the albums and things like that, how far back some of the lyrics go. H comes out with a lyric and we'll try and work on it. And, maybe it's even a couplet or something. Like the Sounds That Can't Be Made. There was, the first inkling of Power dates back to Afraid of Sunlight.
Wow.
So it shows you how long it sort of got. And sometimes it got dropped for a couple of album sessions. It didn't get used H didn't try it. And then he brought it back in and things like that. But the Neverland lyrics and some of the lyrics for Marbles actually date back to some of the Radiation sessions. But they did a version of Neverland, and Neverland the lyric sort of was in almost two parts, where you had the beginning of the song about H. I think he said it's dedicated. It's about his wife, isn't it? His first wife. And then it moves up to the sort of J.M. Barrie Neverland, Wendy in the Kitchen. Well, that second section was, they had a musical idea, was sort of bit Jethro Tull-y, Crowded House, acoustic-y stuff. And it was called The Lost Boys. And that got sort of worked on a little bit during Anorak. That's quite good. So whether they'll ever show the light of day. And, for Marbles, there was a song that I think was really good, but I can understand why they didn't go forward with it. It was a song called Heart of Darkness, which was in the same sort of musical vein as Invisible Man, that sort of dark Apocalypse Now sort of. You can hear it on the Marbles version of Power, that sort of Abbey Road type Beatley sort of musical idea. Yeah. But it actually had the lyrics to Oil, which H released on, I think it was Arclight.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that's the thing. So when you think there's a good lyric and you think, you hear it and that's a great lyric, it then gets used. You see halfway down the line where that gets used, whether it's on some of the H solo stuff. Like he used a lot of the lyrics for what became Ice Cream Genius on various Marillion jamming sessions and stuff. Like Better Dreams got used quite a lot, or tried quite a lot, and so did The Last Thing and things like that. So, and some of the musical stuff, you can say, that went on to Transatlantic. That's The Wishing Tree. That's
Yes.
So they've tried it with Marillion first, and it didn't get used, and then you can see where the constituent parts. I think
he claims that Nothing to Declare was in the bucket for Season's End.
Funnily enough, Nothing to Declare was never used on a Marillion jamming session that I've heard. Whether it got used there was not much stuff around for Season's End. Whether it's where it's languishing, whether it's in the Warner's archives or stuff, I couldn't find much.
Well, he told us a story that Rothers, when ICG came out, Rothers had said to him, sidled up to him, he said, I really like that Nothing to Declare track. And he said, well, I offered you it when we were doing Season's End. You didn't want it. But James, it must be really interesting, as I say. And the making ofs, when I do pull them out, I play them from end to end, because there's some great stuff in there. There really is.
Cheers.
Yeah. Have you given yourself a shopping list for moving forward with the next lot of remasters? So you say to Lucy, I think when we come to X, Y, and Z, we need to put this in, we need to put this in, we need to put this in, we need to put this in.
Yeah, I think I have sort of get the list to myself whenever I'm putting a making of, or when I'm digitizing, listening to stuff, because I listen to it when I'm working. And if I pick something up, I've got a huge Excel, this sounds really nerdy, but I've got a huge Excel spreadsheet that's got it all on there. Purely because when I give it to the band or to Lucy and Mike, as the archive, because it's all going on tape. I've got discs and hard drives and everything that will go up into the band storage. So they'll have it eventually. So everything's like cataloged, so they know where it's from, what's on it, etc. like that. I make a list, and that's really where the starting of the making ofs come. Because if I'm going through something and I find something that's got a lyric on it, or think, oh, that sounds really good, it will go into a folder that goes for the next making of or the next remaster or something like that. So I'm always compiling potentially what could be used. So when I come to do it, I'm not sort of having to start from scratch. I've got almost a head start on myself to say, right, this is what I'm looking for. Season's End, I had a hit list of, I wanted to find the H demo of Easter from '88. Nowhere. I even asked H, and he said, I don't have a copy of it. Apparently I had a chat with Tim Glasswell, who does the Rainbow Room.
Yeah.
And he said he's heard it, and he said he thinks the only person who's got a copy of it is Colin Wall.
Really?
But I found this after the
event.
After the event. Otherwise, I would have gone H, have a word with Colin, see if we can get it.
It's a shame that the songs that you mentioned from Holidays in Eden didn't end up making it onto the Warner set. That would have been really nice.
I think that on that one, it was a case of time.
Yeah.
And trying to get it all, and there's deadlines and things like that. And I think with the ones sort of with the later ones, potentially because it's going to be more in-house. I don't know for sure. I don't know who's going to be doing it. I guess for some of the later ones, if the album's going to be writing, Mike may be really, really busy, and giving it to whoever. It's a case of who's putting them together and sort of that general consensus of this is the list, what's going on. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a pity, and you never know, when it comes around to the 50th anniversary of something or whatever, somebody might go, oh, let's release it now onto whatever the next medium is. And, who knows, will go on there because it'll be in the archive. It'll be available. So we now know it's there, and that's the difference.
Yeah. Brilliant. Can we talk a little bit about your involvement in the Port Zealand quiz?
The quiz, yes.
So you're part of the team. We have a team, I don't know, about 10, 12 people.
Yeah.
We collate the questions. I never really talked about it on the podcast. Do you want to talk about the process?
The long process. Yeah, we sort of, somebody, usually Darren, doesn't it? So it rings the bell and says, we've got a year left before PZ. We better start thinking about it. And so, yeah, as you say, there's the group of us that get our heads together and think of rounds, and every now and again somebody will pop up and said, oh, I've had a good idea, what about this? Like Barnes and his AI round. Yeah, he told me about that. We chatted down the pub just before he said, and he went, what do you think about this? And it was like, whoa.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Brilliant. We tend to decide on the rounds, and then everybody just throws up questions, don't they?
Yeah.
And as we get nearer to it, then there's a vote on which questions are to be used.
Yes, there is. Is like everybody has a vote on the most difficult ones or the easy ones, and trying to get a good balance between.
Yeah, so people don't drop out straight away and think this is too hard. Yeah.
Oh, it was all very different in my day.
It wasn't very different in your day.
I was a dictator.
Well, you were. What do you mean was?
Oh yes.
It wasn't that different. We all had an input before. It wasn't spreadsheety, but this has to be spreadsheety because of the amount of people that are doing it.
Yeah,
it was Yahoo Messenger group back in the day when we had all the different rounds and all the different stuff back. Simpler times.
Parchment when we started, wasn't
it?
Yeah, and we're still not talking about Brave.
You just...
Mr. West, yes.
That was never Brave. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Sorry.
I remember. Yeah, that was because that was when I first met you guys, as I said earlier, through the quiz.
Yeah,
where we put the first Powerheads together.
That was the quiz where Dave Dobby got the school children to draw their interpretation of the album covers.
Classic.
So was it kids of about 7 or 8?
Yeah, 7-year-old.
Yeah. Anyway, but we shall move on from that. But,
yeah. Otherwise, we'll get on to like name that fart and the Price is Right and all that kind of shenanigans.
Take the whole thing down a level.
Oh, what was it? And the charades.
Yeah. It's good if you've never been to PZ, or if you've been to PZ and never done the quiz, just come along. It's a good laugh. It's good.
It is.
It's good.
It is. Although, yeah. Unfortunately, I can't make it since my son was born, because it's around the time he was born, so I can't. But yeah, I mean, I hear everybody really likes the quiz, and it's great. It's fun for us to put it together, I must admit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Some of the questions that get rejected.
Yeah, and why do they get rejected, James? Because it's like, who in the world would know that? Not even the band. Yes.
Well, yes. Which salon does H get his roots done? You know.
Well, I know somebody who would know that. One of my friends was actually sat in a seat next to him in the hairdressers. Jamie Craig. Yeah.
Really? Oh, remind me. I don't know why it just popped into my head that I was going to answer one of your questions. Because I think when you talked about on your pod, which is very good, by the way, I know I'm on it, so
it's even better now you're on it, James.
You brought it up a notch.
Yeah. But you talked about the Fugazi stuff, about the jigsaw puzzle piece that they shined. You went, whatever happened to it?
Yeah, is it in Racket?
Well, no. Well, funnily enough, after I first went to see the band, I went and saw them at Wembley Arena during the 10th anniversary gig.
We were both there. Yeah,
we were there.
Yeah, I was at the bar, and a little while after, my dad, who was an electrician, said to me, "You know that band you like, that Marillion?" I went, "Yes." He said, "Well, I'm doing stuff at their studio. Do you want to go along?" I was like, "Yeah." So it was me as a 19-year-old walking into the first racket club.
Yeah.
In late '92, carrying his tools and trying not to look too much as a fanboy. As they walked in there seeing Mr. Kelly on a unicycle.
Everyday occurrence.
Yeah, everyday occurrence. The actual jigsaw puzzle was hanging from the roof.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
But I don't know where it went from there. So maybe it got tossed after when they moved to the bigger one.
It got sawn in half, and Derek's got half, and they've got the
probably. Yeah.
It was such a striking image in the gig. I still remember it now. Really good idea. Simple, but really effective. James, I'm going to ask you to name your favourite Marillion album. Can you do that?
Marbles.
Well, that's that. That's that.
Yeah. No, it's there's close run things with Brave and Afraid of Sunlight, and I must admit, Hour Before It's Dark, I think, that's been an absolute. No, I wouldn't say return to form, because it's not. Because I think the last couple of albums, they've been, there's always been songs that I've really liked. Some less so on albums. Everybody has that. But I think An Hour Before It's Dark is for them to bring it out in that late stage of their career.
Yeah.
And it'd be really interesting to see where they go now.
Well, yes. You
might have the next 18 months.
We don't know. Yeah, of course. It's a fun. We've not reviewed it properly yet, but it's a fantastic record, isn't it? Like you say, to be releasing an album of that quality at this late stage in the career is amazing.
Yeah, they always say. I remember chatting to Mike, and Mike said early on in sort of when they were writing, he said it's going to be an hour. That's what he said to the band. He said, I want, and they all agreed it's going to be an hour of quality music.
Yeah.
And it is. And live, it's just taken on a whole different meaning.
Do you still listen to Fish?
Yes, I do. I go to Fish gigs. Looking forward to seeing the last dates in UK.
Yeah.
Hoping he's coming to Aylesbury. I don't think he is, but I hope he will.
He is. He's the only one he's actually named so far.
Oh, has he? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's complained about the commission charges.
That's why he named it, because he's complaining about the amount of merch percentage
as ATG.
The Waterside wants to take off him.
Well, I will be hook or by crook at the Waterside, because I think I fell out. That's my story with Fish. I sort of fell out going to see Fish towards, I think you were talking about 13th Star.
Yeah.
And I saw him at the Rescue Rooms in Nottingham
Which is not a great venue, is it?
Which is not a great venue. At the beginning of 2008, I think it was, where I think it was the gigs that they rescheduled due to Frank Usher's heart attack.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't a great gig.
Wow.
And I said to my friend Paul, Paul Thompson, who you both know. And I said, that's it. Seeing him the year before at the Hobble on the Cobbles, which was, an amazing gig. Were you there?
Yeah.
I think you were there. Yeah, I think you were there. Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing, apart from the version of Market Square Heroes, which is the most ramshackle thing you've ever heard. But it was important, yeah.
But I think as you say, the sort of what it represented.
Yes, yeah.
Not a reunion, just a one-off of mates having almost a jam on stage to Market Square Heroes was just epic. With the history and everything like that.
The atmosphere in the square was just amazing that day. It really was.
Yeah. And so I sort of said, okay, I think I'm not going to go traveling to see it anymore. But then he played Return to Child at the Waterside.
Yeah.
And that was a phenomenal gig. And that sort of rekindled my love for it. I always liked his music. I'm not again, I like some albums better than others. But I think I really liked Weltschmerz. I thought it was a really, really good album. And I saw him last couple of times at Oxford and places like that. And so I regularly do listen to, I think, I'm looking forward to the Vigil and Internal Exile remasters because Vigil is a superb album.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what he's got as the extras for those albums.
Yes.
And he's, did you read you maybe haven't read it, he's got an alternate track listing for Internal.
I have, yeah. And I like the B-sides for Internal. I think Poet's Moon is
it's great. So is Carnival,
for me, it's maybe
better
stronger
than some of the tracks on the album, definitely, yeah.
I would say it's better than the original version for me, Favorite Stranger. Dear Friend for me is a bit of I know the lyrics are a very good one, but compared to the other songs on the album, I could see Carnival Man but that's me personally. So I can understand why he's done it because it as a body of work,
I'm fine with it. It's a pretty uneven album as it came out originally for me. It has some real highs and some. We haven't really reviewed it yet, but it's got some real highs.
We will as soon as Timmy masters it. He'd like a shot.
Well, when he does,
May is it? April, May? They're talking about? Or was that for Vigil?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think he'll meet that deadline if I'm honest, but I think it'll probably be nearer the tour, which starts in October in Europe. I mean, if he does get it together, brilliant. But I mean, he was. I don't know, Craig. Have you heard the Fish on Friday from last week? Now,
yeah, I just listeners avert your ears. I was watching it in the bath.
Oh, nobody needs that image. Sorry, folks. Apologies. Yeah, no one needs that image. It was pretty. I mean, he launched the tour, but he was quite negative about lots of stuff. It made me think of, because it was the same day that Jurgen Klopp announced he was leaving Liverpool because he was running out of energy. And it made me think of that. I was just getting the impression that Fish is kind of getting tired of dealing with the same shit, really.
Yeah, I've not seen the Friday one. I guess it was also maybe, he's just had a knee operation, so he's going to be in a lot of pain as well. Yeah. Who knows? I mean,
I'm really looking forward to the tour. I hope it's a real celebration of his career.
Yes. Yeah, I hope so.
We'll do everything we can to be in Glasgow for the last night, because that promises to be, a really good night.
Yeah. And I think, if it's like some of the other later gigs, I think some of the sort of 2018 onwards and things like that, he's been in a lot happier place. Yeah. And that's reflected in the gigs. And yeah, you're probably right. I think by the sound of it, he's had enough with the music business. He's sort of like, I want to finish it. I want to get it done, because it has been due to COVID and everything else. It's been it's a couple of 3-4 years overdue.
Yeah.
It'd have been original plan done and dusted, I think. So
Yeah.
whereas the Marillions, I think, still got plenty in the tank.
I think it's because they handle things completely differently. With Fish, he's the one-man band. He's been burnt so many times by different people financially that he doesn't trust anybody, and he doesn't trust the industry, essentially. Whereas Marillion, they've got that core business plan of release as much themselves, and they've got a major record label behind them with Ear Music, that they can release what they want to retail and release what they want direct to the fans. It works perfectly both ways. Whereas Fish has never trusted a record label in a long time now.
Yeah, and I think just artistically, they've got a lot in the tank. Yeah. I still think they are, hearing some of the musical ideas that come out, even the stuff that doesn't get used, you think, wow, and there is a lot of stuff that was left over from An Hour Before It's Dark. They talked about a complete song that was almost on the album I haven't heard it before asking, so I can't give you any information, but even for some of the lyrics I've heard and that may get used on this next album, there's still real lot of stuff to get there, and I think they think that they haven't made the best album they can with Mike. They're still wanting to improve and build on the Hour Before It Started, because there has been over the last few years, there's been a head of steam, really, almost with, since I think Fear started getting back up the charts and the Albert Hall gigs and everything like that. It's on an upward curve where, in the sort of late 90s, it was on the downward, but it's been going well since.
They've really turned it around in the last 10 years, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, in the sort of late 90s, early 90s, they were having to churn out albums that, I think nowadays they would have spent more time developing the tracks before they got to the point of releasing them. I mean, there's stuff on there that's great and some of my favorite tracks on there, but we're not talking about the consistent quality that we're getting on the likes of An Hour Before It's Dark.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it, but Built-In Bastard Radar would never be released now.
No. But then you listen to those three albums, and I think it's almost was setting the stage of what was to come, because it gave them, they expanded the musical palette so much on those three albums.
Yeah, they're so diverse, really.
Yeah. We'd almost sort of say you could see the seeds of where Anorak was to come and where Marbles was going to be, and, following that sort of groove. And so I think they were, although at the time they thought, oh, shit, we're going to get to the point where we might not be able to make the music that we want to make.
Yeah.
I think they were worthy additions to the Marillion catalogue, and gave them the space then to think, actually, I really enjoyed doing that. Let's carry on with that and things like that.
It's kind of a bit of a parallel with, say, Abacab in the Genesis catalogue, I think, for me, which is a transitional record that moves them into a different area. Tend to think of those three albums in that sort of vein, really.
Yeah. I think, would you have got how much experimental Anorak was in certain aspects if they hadn't written some of the songs on .com or some of the songs on Radiation?
Well, I mean, Radiation is really eclectic for me, but even just the recording volumes and all of that we've talked about, we've reviewed Radiation, but it's the original disc is almost sort of put out like a series of demos. It's
indie. It's like
lo-fi, isn't it? It's lo-fi.
Yeah. It's almost, you would say, it's Marillion's grunge album.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think anybody who likes grunge might challenge that, but yeah.
I might get cut out of Kurt Cobain thrown at me or something. But in the Marillion stable, I think it's almost their grungiest album, because the way, as I say, the lo-fi way it was recorded and things like that. And the 2013 remaster brings out a lot of the nuances of the songs and things like that. But you still listen to some of the early version, the original version, you think, wow,
Yeah.
And listening to the sessions, Radiation, and the sessions for Radiation, you got half of .com there already. Most of the ideas for .com came out of the Radiation session. So it was a really sort of productive period. Maybe it's to say, get them to a deadline, lock them in the studio. That's what will happen now.
Yeah.
Who knows? But it was the same for Afraid of Sunlight, because you got most of the TSE, or the starting points for TSE during Afraid of Sunlight.
Right.
The sessions with Dave Meagan in attendance, and was pushing them and pushing them and pushing them.
And then about 10 years later, after Radiation, you had Happiness is the Road, where you had Somewhere Else and Happiness is the Road. Essentially 3 albums worth of material out within the space of 2 years.
Yeah, well, not most of it. A lot of the ideas for Somewhere Else and Happiness came from Marbles. This is why there was so much material for Marbles. There was I think, 15 songs released on Marbles. My memory serves me correct, something like that.
Yeah,
but
actually, don't ask me that. No,
not this late at night. But I think when the demo list came out, or the list of potential demos, there was something like 23 songs.
Wow.
Because you had Real Tears for Sale, you had State of Mind, you had Faith, which then went on to be on Somewhere Else. And the sessions for Somewhere Else, again, was quite short, but you got a lot of stuff that went on then to Happiness. And you had the beginnings of what happened Sounds That Can't Be Made. The lyrics for Sounds That Can't Be Made was actually tried out during Marbles and Somewhere Else and things like that.
It just it's just a whole lot of spaghetti, isn't it? Really, just
all interlinked.
Everything all interlinked.
Yeah. It sounds fascinating, James. Some of the stuff you must have heard must be absolutely amazing. And a lot of it is on these CDs or these downloads that are still available on Bandcamp. It's worth mentioning. Again, I highly recommend the making ofs. If you've not heard them before, pick your favourite album and just have a listen to one of the downloads of the making ofs. James does some sterling work, and he deserves a medal for it.
2 medals.
2 medals, yeah.
Thank you.
James, it's been great to talk to you tonight. I'm sure people have found it interesting.
Hope so.
I think they will. I'm sure they will. It's a real insight into the way the band records, and you've given us further insight with the making ofs, and to hear that you're still involved with the reissues is really, really great, because some of the stuff you've dug out for the ones that have come out so far is fantastic.
Cheers.
And long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hope so.
Absolutely.
We'll get you locked in the attic to get it out before it's done.
Yeah. That can't be far away, James. That now.
No, I guess
okay.
not.
Okay.
Yeah. And on that bombshell.
Yeah. No, thanks very much for talking to us, James.
You're welcome.
It's been great to see you, fella, and take care.
Yeah, been a pleasure. Cheers.
So, there's only one thing left to say, although I have upset somebody by saying this, but it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Take care.
And stay alive.
Yay. Thanks for listening to Planet Marzipan Podcast. Please like and subscribe from whichever platform you get your podcasts from. You can contact us at planetmarzipanpodcast@gmail.com and check out Marillion.com, fishmusic.scot or fishmusic.eu for all the good stuff.